you still want to be the general of someone's fitness. Now, you want people taking responsibility for their own health, right? That's something we saw in the pandemic. Like, we need people taking responsibility for their own health, but they still need a professional who works on it and thinks about it. So we have this opportunity to elevate ourselves in the profession by not just being someone who count reps and shows up and gets paid hourly. Right. We have a bigger opportunity now because we can leverage all these stepping stones. You don't say Peloton's competition. You look at Peloton as a tool now, right? It's like, okay, well, that's great. I want you to do 1 or 2 mornings of Peloton, and I want you to come into my gym twice, and I want to check your HRV, and I want to see what's going on in your life. I want to know your lifestyle data, and you become more valuable in that. So we have this opportunity to leverage all this. And I think the big thing that I want people to take away is, like, you have 2 options. Like, the industry's changing, technology's coming. You can either embrace it or you could just get completely run over by it.
Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today we have a giant coming to you from Big Sky Country, great state of Montana. I have Eric Malzone, and I think we have a lot to talk about because this guy has done it all. He's a former gym owner. He is the host of the Future Fitness Podcast. He runs, he and his partner run Level 5 Mentors, which is an entrepreneurial group, mentorship group. And then he also has the Black Diamond podcast, which he's using kind of in an interesting way that hopefully we'll get into in the show. And then I also want to talk about his new project coming up, Morpheus. And that's all I'm going to give you for now. So if you want to learn more about Morpheus, you're gonna have to listen to the whole damn podcast. So and he's got all kinds of stuff going on. This guy is the real deal. So I want to welcome Eric Malzone to the show. Eric, welcome to the show.
Jim, it's an absolute pleasure, man. And before we get too far down the road on anything, I just want to say how much of an honor it is to always be on someone else's podcast, because I know how much work it takes. Maybe people don't realize, like, from getting the guests to the preparation, to the editing, to the releasing, and the consistency that you've had over so many years now. I have a lot of respect for it. So it's an honor to be here, man.
Thank you, man. That means a lot coming from you. I mean, because you have a couple of podcasts and you've done a lot. You are a baller. You roll with the big wigs like Rick Mayo and Tim Lyons and all those guys. So glad to have you on the show. So talk to us. I know we were talking before we started recording, and we wanted to launch into the new ecosystem that the post-COVID landscape has kind of given birth to. So you want to explain that to the listeners?
Yeah. It's I credit Rick Mayo and Ian Mullane, both talk about it extensively. Ian wrote a great white paper on it. And I think if you look up Ian Mullane white paper, you can probably search and find it. But we have found ourselves in an interesting place, right? I mean, we have pre-COVID. I'm sure you talked about COVID a million times on this show, and so have I. But it's just where we are. With the advances in the industry overall, when I started my podcast, Future Fitness, in 2017, I just felt, having been an operator for so long, like, something's due to change, right? I mean, you probably felt it too. It was like technology was just kind of breaking in. Business systems were really kind of archaic. The whole model was archaic. It was low, for the most part, low margins, low profits. It was, probably secondary to the restaurant industry. The fitness industry was one, or the gym industry.
And low barrier to entry. So there's a lot of players.
Yeah. It was a tough one. And I just felt like something was going to change. I didn't know that, of course, a pandemic was coming and it would be accelerated 10 times, if not more. So what we saw in 2020 was obviously unprecedented for the industry. Well over $4 billion of investment money coming in. And that's not, it's not it's VCs, it's angel investors. So it's not, it's not Wall Street, right? They're not investing. So there's people who are taking risk and looking at this as a high growth opportunity. So with that, you get the advancement of Pelotons and tonals and mirrors. Online coaching just exploded with all the technology pieces around that. People have so many options now. You can just, if you want to find online programming, you can get it for free, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And then the argument or the discussion around, well, will people come back to gyms? I think we're starting to see now that yes, people are coming back to gyms, right?
Mhm.
But it's different. People have more options. And I think as fitness professionals, our challenge is to kind of understand the ecosystem that we're in now, and where we fit into it, because it's not the same as it was in 2019. It's just different now, and it's hard to describe, but I think everyone feels it, right? It's like, okay, if I'm a consumer and I now have, maybe I have a Peloton at home, right? But I still want to go into the gym. I want to be with my trainer. I also could have Apple Fit, where if I just need a quick streaming workout, I can just do that too, right? So where do we fit into that? And how do we take technology that's come about and how do we leverage it in a useful way? And I think it's really hard to be all things to everybody now. So we
Mhm.
have to kind of pick where we want to be in that ecosystem. So I'm trying to think of a useful um, sample of what that may be. Um, I think for a high-end personal trainer, let's say I was running like a Rick Mayo type alloy personal training studio, right?
Mhm.
You still want to be the general of someone's fitness. Now, you want people taking responsibility for their own health, right? That's something we saw in the pandemic. Like we need people taking responsibility for their own health, but they still need a professional who works on it and thinks about it. So we have this opportunity to elevate ourselves in the profession by not just being someone who count reps and shows up and gets paid hourly. Right. We have a bigger opportunity now because we can leverage all these stepping stones. You don't say Peloton's competition. You look at Peloton as a tool now, right?
Mhm.
It's like, okay, well, that's great. I want you to do 1 or 2 mornings of Peloton, and I want you to come into my gym twice, and I want to check your HRV, and I want to see what's going on in your life. I want to know your lifestyle data, and you become more valuable in that. So we have
Mhm.
this opportunity to leverage all this. And I think the big thing that I want people to take away is like, you have 2 options. Like the industry's changing, technology's coming. You can either embrace it or you could just get completely run over by it. And
Mhm.
obviously we stay positive on this podcast, so we're going to talk about how do we embrace it. So that's the new ecosystem that is evolving and it's changing every day.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think the days of just counting reps are, kind of set the timer, forget it, set and forget it, are over. I think though, like you said, those people are going to be, they're like dinosaurs, right? They haven't,
Yeah.
they're, if they're, they don't evolve, they're going to grow, become extinct. And I think you do have to be more holistic in your approach and think of it as a kind of almost like a lifestyle or health and fitness coach. um, and then I think with the technology, I think the easiest way to jump into that pool is to adopt what's already there. I know at our
Yes.
club, we have, when I opened up in 2015, I ordered 2 of the Peloton bikes, just so I can, because I didn't want to build a spin class. I didn't want to hire a spinning instructor. So I figured, oh, these bikes will be perfect for that. Little did I know, right? But now, like you said, we still have the Peloton bikes and we include it in our membership. So and we have boot camps too, in addition to the personal training. So when we sit down with a prospective clients, when we do our initial assessment, we prescribe for them. We say, hey, this is where you are, this is where you want to go, and we think this is the best formula to get you there. And of course, we're going to do regular check-ins. We're going to get all your baseline numbers. But I think you have to be more comprehensive, a little bit more holistic, and I think you do have to embrace the new technology instead of trying to swim upstream against it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's still things that technology can't do, right? They can't listen, right? They can't, they don't hold empathy for someone's situation. They don't have the stories and the background, the experience that makes things relatable. And they don't remember, like, when you see someone on the personal training floor, if you're a great trainer, you remember something from that person's life from a previous conversation, you bring it back up again. It kind of starts it all over again. It's that human part of it. So we still have huge advantages over any piece of technology, but now we just have so many better tools to use it. Uh, yeah, I love what you did with the Peloton. It's that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, well, bring it in. Let's learn it. right? Let's
Mhm.
learn from it. Let's see how we can utilize it. And maybe there's nothing there. And I think the problem or the challenge that we've had in industry for since its inception is that, um, well, maybe not, but maybe over the last 30 years, let's say that, is that we always, there's in America, just use rough numbers, 20% of the United States engages in some sort of fitness program, right? The other 80% doesn't do anything.
Mhm.
But yet we always fight over the same 20. So
Mhm.
now we have access to this whole 80% because people are working from home. They're engaging in more technology. They're starting to understand, and hopefully, just talking to us about a client, hopefully the focus on better health will stick, right? That seems to one of the benefits of COVID. I also think we have an opportunity to kind of start bridging the gap between medical in health. Like we can be health coaches, if that makes
Mhm.
sense, not just, hey, let's get someone to lose a few pounds. We can actually progress and start to bridge that gap between the fitness and the medical profession. And I think in there is what we may call a health coach, right? Whatever we want to tag it. But I think there's a
Mhm.
gap there that we can start climbing on as well.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you said at the very beginning of the shows that we can't be all things to everybody. So we
Yes.
have to kind of pick our niche. So I think if you want to be that health coach, I think you have to educate yourself. You have to raise your game so that you're able to offer those services and that insight to your clients. For me, that's a big one, because if you get somebody coming in who say type 2 diabetic, right?
Sure.
They're like, oh, my diabetes medicine is right on, it's controlling it. It's like, well, let's see if we can get you to where you don't need medicine,
Mm,
or you need less of it, because that's going to extend your life, but you have to be educated. You have to be knowledgeable when you're speaking on those things. Otherwise, you can really hurt somebody or hurt yourself, hurt your reputation. And I think you have to create um, a platform where you're kind of the spokesperson and the go-to person for that certain niche, whatever you choose to hook your wagon onto.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a couple tools for that. And I think it's interesting you mentioned, and there's a lot of people who are probably listening who have done this successfully. They've managed to bridge that gap. Maybe
Hmm.
they work with a lot of physical therapists or orthopedics, right? And they know like they get a lot of referrals and they're a trusted partner for those medical professionals and vice
Hmm.
versa. I know a lot of people have done it very well and they do extremely well.
Hmm.
Um, but there's a lot of tools now that because we walk that fence of like, well, what is our scope of practice in this
Right.
area? And that's very challenging, but we have tools for that. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
biased because they're a partner on my podcast, but Inside Tracker does a great job of, your clients can get a DNA, they can get blood work, and then they'll get reporting that will be also sent to you. And it gives it a very simple step and it protects you, right? It's a layer of protection. It's like, okay, there's nothing like, so if people want to check it out, they can go to Inside Tracker and .com/future and you get a discount on all this stuff. Um, but the like when I did it, I got my DNA test, I got my blood work done, and it gave me very simple recommendations. And it's a whole dashboard that explains all of these things. And then it basically told me, hey, the DNA test is like, well, that's the cards you were dealt when you were born, right? The blood work is how you're actually playing your cards. And the feedback I got was, I'm doing pretty well. It also has this really cool. This is I feel like is an advertisement for them, but it's not. I just really like it. They got this inner age score, so it shows your biological score versus your or age versus your chronological age.
Okay.
So I'm 44, but it says my inner age is like 42, right? So I'm a
Okay.
little bit healthier than the average 44. And to me, that's a metric where it's like, if I'm a fitness professional, I could get access to this. I'm like, okay, now we're going to work on a metric that really matters,
Mhm.
right? We're going to get you feeling younger, being younger, and having a more longevity and energy in your life. So it just gave me simple recommendations like eat more oatmeal, less red meat, all things that as fitness professionals are like, well, duh. But now it's
Mhm.
there for you, and you have this protection, and you have a scope of practice. It's very clear. So that's one tool that I think is really cool. Just to give people an example of things you can be leveraging.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I really like the sound of that. I'm just glad they don't have one that shows your emotional maturity, because I would hate to see my score on that one. I know it's pretty low. I still like, fart jokes and booty jokes. But
Who doesn't? Yeah. If I don't
yeah.
like fart jokes anymore, Jim, I want you to just put me down. Like just like let's just cut it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
it's not worth living. But you said something else too, earlier, where you were talking about the 20%.
Yeah.
And I know Rick, he brings that up a lot, and it's just burned into my brain, in that the fitness industry has done a very poor job of penetrating that 80%.
Mm.
And I think because of COVID, with the now heightened emphasis on being healthy, and with the online ecosystem evolving so rapidly as a result of COVID, it's easier for that 80% to do something online or through an app than walking into a gym, which can be really, really intimidating. But like you said, people still want the face to face. They still want that human connection, that rapport, the kind of coaching relationship. And if fit pros today are going to really make an impact into that 80%, they have to change their approach from what they have been doing. So do you agree with that? And how would you recommend people change their approach so they can penetrate into the 80% market?
Yeah. Yes, I do agree with it. And I think what it comes down to in its most basic forms, we have to reduce friction, right? Like how do we get people into, trying out a fitness program, taking that tiniest first step, right? And that could be an app. It could be something simple. I had a fascinating conversation with a guy out of Canada who has I think he's got a chain of 18 or 19 personal training studios in
Hmm.
Canada as very well. And they started this thing called Workout. Nobody has vowels in their name anymore. So it's like WRKOUT or something. They just people remove vowels. Anyway, but
It's easier to trademark.
yeah, I guess that's it, right? All the
Yeah.
good names are taken. So
Uh-huh.
it's a marketplace for it's like Airbnb for fitness. So someone could be like, you know what, maybe they're feeling a moment of inspiration or motivation, right? It's that they're like, yeah, God, I want to, today is the day. Something happened. Someone said something to them in a passing comment, like, oh, maybe they're a woman. Someone asked them if they're pregnant and they're not. Or, a guy went to the beach and he just doesn't want to take his shirt off anymore. Whatever, those little triggers, right? That give those
Hmm.
moments, like we got to find those moments and we got to really activate them in a effective way. And that's what I mean by removing friction, because if that's like, okay, someone has one of those moments, they're like, well, my next step is to search online for a gym, and then I gotta set an appointment for a consultation. That motivation goes away. I mean, I'm sure we've all had people book consultations and the person doesn't show up 2 weeks later,
Yep.
right? So we got to catch them in the moment. And what this does, it provides a really easy place where someone could just find a personal trainer online, right? They can either be online, in person, or at a gym, whatever it may be, and they can book an appointment right there, pay for it, right? And then the person starts that relationship, or they can book 10 of them or whatever it may be. So they're the core of it. And I don't really have any great answers for this. I'm just regurgitating examples I've seen in the market, but is how do we reduce that friction at those particular points? And the people who start to figure that out, then they're going to be the ones who are really going to tackle that 80%.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, the first start place I tell people to start is marketing, right?
Sure.
Get rid of the six pack abs and the booty shorts, right? Because that's the 20%.
Yep.
That's not going to hit people when they are having those moments, right? So that's, and then just a mindset shift, right? Because I find, and I've been guilty of this, I find that fit pros, they love themselves and they love people like them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the 20%. So you have to make that shift to get that, morbidly obese person, comfortable with walking through the doors of your facility. And then once you can do that, and then if they walk through and they see somebody else just like them there, then you're well on your way. But that takes a mind shift mindset shift for a big chunk of the industry. But the good news is, I think coming out of COVID, people are a little bit more pliable these days because they realize things have changed, and COVID humbled everyone.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And the marketing is key. I mean, it's like a good marketing campaign is I think my friend Matt Walrath displayed it as like an automatic trust building machine.
Hmm.
So, you're creating good content, you're getting people to really relate to who you are. And by the time they engage with you, they already trust you or like you or
Hmm.
both, right? Hopefully.
Right.
So that I think the marketing is key, and really knowing who you want to get to. I mean, there's a lot of, the gyms that do really well that, they have none of what you talked about. There's no big heavy equipment, there's no booty shorts, there's no nothing. They make it very, very welcoming atmosphere so that that friction is reduced, because it is. I mean, we forget, people who have been, fitness professionals or athletes or in the gym for a long time, it's just second nature for us, right? Like
Hmm.
I feel completely at home in the gym.
Hmm.
There's nothing intimidating in there anymore for me, right?
Hmm.
But for a lot of people, it is huge, and we have to honor that, right? Just
Right.
taking that step or making that phone call, we have to honor it and really nurture it, and be, I guess, gentle with it at
Hmm.
times. So I think that's critical in your marketing. If you're a good marketer, which I'm really not, ironically, because I used to own an agency, I figured out I wasn't that good. Um, you can you can really start to nail that down, that messaging and who you want to get after. So marketing is 100% critical, because that's where you meet people, right?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your honesty, but marketing is hard, man.
It's
It's really
hard.
hard because it's a moving target,
Yes.
especially like you can't talk marketing without talking social media or a digital presence, and the rules of that change so rapidly that you need to do that. In order to do it well, you have to do it full time so that
Right.
you can stay on top of it and kind of geek out on all the changes and everything. So I always think marketing is one of the things that farm out the most is marketing because of all of those reasons, for sure. Um, but I mean, we were talking about, the new ecosystem that's out there, and the new in integrating the new technology. I don't think, because I think I used to think, I'm okay, well, I'm going to have to come up with some kind of technology, some kind of technical wonder to get people coming in, where I can just adopt what's already there. I can use all the wearable technology. I can incorporate that into programming or a challenge. I can do the inside tracker like you talked about, or maybe I can do something else like Morpheus.
Yes.
I don't know if it's too early to let the cat out of bag, but
Not at all.
I'm pretty pumped out about this. So you want to tell the listeners about Morpheus?
Yeah, I do. I really, really do. The So I'll give you a little background. So on the Future of Fitness, I've had Joel Jameson, who's the founder of Morpheus, on my podcast a couple of times. And the most recent interview he did, when he was describing what was then called the Grid, which is now the Morpheus coaching platform, I got so excited about it. Like, after the poor guy, I was like, dude, you got to let me help you with this. Just tell me, what do you need? I'll mop the floor. So just let me help you with this. And, and he did. And here we are. But give background on it. So if people don't know Joel Jameson, you can go to 8weeksout.com. You can learn more about him. He's been in the game for a long time, very well respected, coming out of combat sports primarily. His certification, he's certified, I think, close to 5,000 coaches in his conditioning principles. And he's also one of the early adopters of heart rate variability. And we have a guest today.
Yes,
Hey, how's it
it's
going,
my
man?
son. He just got back from the zoo.
Right on.
Hang
I
out,
love
buddy.
that.
Mhm.
So that's yeah, the HRV thing is something that people are really starting to take hold of. And Joel's got great stories about, when he first started, he found HRV 20 years ago. It was in the basement of, some Russian basement, hooked up to a $30,000 piece of equipment, electrodes, and not knowing what the heck it was, and then learning about it and being like, this is it. Like, this is the guiding light that we should be using as coaches. So fast forward, Morpheus was actually started as he got hired by Gold's Gym to develop the technological backbone of what was going to be their answer to F45 and Orange Theories. It was called Element 79. Unfortunately, due to COVID, that never saw the light of day. Fortunately for the rest of the industry and Joel is that there's a lot of development money put into it. And now we have the Morpheus coaching platform and we can all use it, right? It's access for everybody. So to put it simply, the problem that it addresses is that as coaches and trainers, when people leave our gym, we have no idea what happens, right? We don't know their stress levels. We don't know how they're sleeping. We don't know how they're eating. All we get is some subjective data from questioning them, which oftentimes I don't saying people lie to us as trainers. I do think oftentimes we lie to ourselves as humans, right?
Hmm.
And we don't get the feedback we need. So, those 2-3 hours that we're getting with people in the week may be null or even worse, negated or whatever due to lifestyle factors. We can solve that now. I mean, almost, I think, 50% of the something ridiculous, 50% of the population, let's just say for the sake of Garmin, has some sort of wearable device, right? I have a Garmin, people have Aura, Fitbit, even your phone collects your lifestyle data. So we all have
Apple
all this
Watch.
data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of
Mm-hmm.
it. We're pulling all this data in, but none of it's been, adequately produced and made actionable for coaches. So that's what Morpheus does. So a couple things. I'll explain the client experience. So if I'm a client, let's say I walk into your gym and you do your consultation, they decide to sign up, they get two devices. They get a armband, which is our recovery band. They also get a heart rate strap, but it doesn't have to be our heart rate strap. Ours is really nice. And they walk away, they download the consumer app, which is now available. And every morning they take a 3-minute recovery score. So they have this little band that just stays there. It slides on, and we can get into the details of HRV. I think it's unnecessary. It's actually accurate. Okay, so as coaches and trainers, we want to get an accurate HRV score. Many of the wearables we have out there do not give accurate. They're, let's say, Whoops and the Apples. I mean, they're working on it, but just the way they take in the score, it's not accurate. But Morpheus is about as good as you get. Okay, so that combined with the wearable data that we have APIs, we're pulling all in the lifestyle data of their activity, their sleep, their resting heart rate, a bunch of different factors that we can get from standard wearable devices. It pulls it all into a platform. As a coach, it's displayed for you. You can see how everybody's doing. You can rank it in different ways. And then from there, it just doesn't stop there. I mean, that's amazing as itself. You can see how people are recovering, and because we all know it's not necessarily the training, but it's how people recover from the training that gives them results. And over time, we want to see the right trends. We want to see slight increases in HRV, more sleep, lower heart rate, resting heart rate, things like that, right? So it makes us look really, really smart as a profession. On top of that, it also does live heart rate training. So compared to some of the other big competitors that people may know, the heart rate zones are relative to that person's recovery for that day. So, Jim, if you take a recovery score and it's, let's say, 58, right? Your heart rate zones will automatically be adjusted by Morpheus to lower, right? So that you're not pushing into an overload zone on a day where you're just not ready for it. In comparison, if you were in the high 90s, it would basically a green light, all training's on the table, heart rate zones are high, let's push, right? These are the days that we go for it. So in a nutshell, that's what it does. And then, it's all displayed. You can have it in a gym. You can have it mobile. If you're a coach who maybe contracts at different places, maybe goes to one gym and do some outside stuff, does at-home stuff, you can bring it with you. And one of the best parts about it is that it's been priced so that coaches and gym owners actually make money on it.
Nice.
So there's margin.
I'm really excited about it, because if there's one thing that's rampant in the fitness industry is overtraining.
Yes.
Either by trainers or by clients who just want to always push. I want you to murder me today. Right. Even though they've got, they exist on 3 hours of sleep and 500 milligrams of caffeine a day, but they still want to be, just crushed, So yeah, I think that is really exciting to me. But it also goes to what we were talking about earlier, being raising your game and being a little bit more professional and scientific about and having the data to back you up to say, no, it's not me that's telling you you need to take it easy today. It's your body that's telling
Yes.
you you need to take it easy today. And so I'm going to guide you through this, and we're going to get you feeling much better, much healthier, because a lot of times, like, the endocrine system can't be ignored, right? Because if your cortisol levels are always elevated, then your blood glucose levels are always elevated, your insulin resistance always up, it's going to make it really hard for you to lose weight. So if you've got a tool like that in your toolbox, then that can go a long way toward separating you from the pack.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And heart rate variability isn't anything new to the market. The difference with Morpheus is that it's built by coaches for coaches. So the platform, everything is built to make the data actionable and easy to use, right? That's the biggest thing. And it's built specific. I can't say it's built specifically for the coach. There's a lot of consumer facing products out there. And obviously, that Morpheus has to have some kind of consumer facing side to it. And that's what the consumer app is. But it's really built for the coach because we want all this data funneling through people who actually know what to do with it. Most consumers have no idea. The internet, like most people don't, I guarantee you, the overwhelming percentage of people have no idea what their HRV is. That's why people are starting to, like Garmin, I think now calls it the human battery score, right? So they're kind of just seeing over the day how your battery is doing. And then, if you sleep at night, if your battery goes back up to 100% or whatever, it's clever, right? It's really clever. And, something when I started getting testimonials as we're ready for our big launch, and people will see this, it should be up by the end of the week, the trainwithmorpheus.com new site. You can go there. But it's really interesting, Jim, hearing people, once it's now in the coach's hands, what they're seeing. And that's the most exciting. It's like, okay, we want to get this tool out there, but we want to get it to really smart people and see how they use it. And one of the biggest things is that it creates an objective measure to have conversations that actually matter. So, it's besides, if I would go to you, you come to me, you're like, man, Jim, you're looking a little tired, buddy. Your workouts, you seem like you've been pumping a lot of caffeine, and people are like, oh no, no, everything's good. Right now we can actually sit down and be like, forget those questions. Let's just look at the data and say, hey, this is interesting. Your sleep's gone down. You're averaging about 5 hours for the last week. What's going on in your life? And this opens up conversations that actually really matter and are very valuable to the client. So it takes out that, hey, I'm the authority coming down on you to make sure you're doing all the things I told you to do. Now we have an objective standard that we can look at it. And one of the other things it does, it automatically builds in curiosity. So the consumer, the client is looking at it and be like, what is all this? Is fascinating. Like, I'm starting to see some patterns here. What does this all mean? And then they start coming back with questions, and then you become, the trusted source. So it's doing a lot of things that we thought it may do, but they're actually happening, and it's only going to get better because more and more people are going to start using it. We're going to get some really cool training methodologies around it with education and how to elevate the industry. So I can't say this enough. It's really built for the coach, and we've had investor groups come in. They're like, no, we should switch to a consumer model because that's where all the big money is, right? Everyone wants to be the headspace of something. But we're sticking to the industry, and that's who we want to serve, and we want to make the industry elevate. So I'm just fired up to be part of it, obviously.
Yeah, I'm equally excited about it as well. Because I was telling you before we started recording, I was telling you about a buddy of mine who is a strength and conditioning coach in an NHL, and then he got hired by the Penguins. And his title was Director of Science and Technology. And so, as I was telling you, I was giving him shit. I'm like, what are you pumping yourself up with some, BS title? But basically what he was, and the Penguins kind of pioneered this approach, in that he would monitor, his job was to monitor the biometrics of all the players, and then advise the coaching staff when it was a good time to push them, when they were ready to play, how hard should practice be, maybe they should take a day off, things like that. So he was just interpreting the data, like you said, and then consulting with the coaches on how to conduct practices or game plans or whatever, who would be in a lineup, all of those things. And they won the Stanley Cup that year. And the
Beautiful.
next year, they won it back to back. So I forget how long ago this was. You can go back and see when they won their first of their back to back cups. But as a result, they got everybody else's attention. And now it's become the standard in the NHL. Every NHL team has a director of science and technology who's doing the same thing for one simple reason: it works. So that makes me really, really excited about this Morpheus. And we'll have more. We'll have those links in the show notes. Just go to trainerjim.net and click on this episode of the podcast, and the links to check out Morpheus will be right there. See if you want to take the red pill or stay with the blue one. And then I know on your, when I was doing some research on you, AKA social media stalking, I noticed that you had the CEO of Tonal and F45 on. So I want to get your perspective on what are they thinking in as terms of approaching the market, and how do personal trainers compete with that?
Yeah, so Tonal, we can start there. So Ali Oradi is the founder of Tonal. I haven't had him back on the podcast in a good, I would say at least 18 months, really since the pandemic started. I haven't, and for good reason. I think I got him before Tonal exploded on my podcast. He had some really cool, I think, early on interviews, but he's just simply unaccessible now, which happens when, I'm sure maybe his pockets are so full of money that he can't find his phone, right? But he's doing really well. And I think during that time, I mean, he had talked to me about how do they serve the fitness profession? That was a specific question he had for me. I think at the end of the second interview I had with him, and then we talked again for a few hours, shortly thereafter. And there is a lot of opportunity. I mean, man, it's crazy. I kind of look at like this, is that, and there's Mike from Endorphins was on my podcast, and I have to credit him with this concept, but he looked at it as like, we're entering an age, whether it's good or bad, where training talent, coaches, personal trainers, personalities, right, are going to be treated like, it's going to be treated like the record label business, where they sign contracts. I mean, man, I don't know if anybody is aware of how much the top Peloton instructors make. It's jaw dropping. We're talking close to $1 million a year for some of these people.
Shit.
Yeah. So, how do we compete with that? I think you ignore the noise, right? And you focus on your ideal clients and constantly being open to ways to help them achieve their goals. I mean, there's still something that doesn't move. It's like, if you get people results and you build a strong relationship with them, they're not going anywhere, right? I think it's that old adage, it's really easy to quit a program, it's hard to quit people. And that's ultimately where's our advantage for the individual trainer. It's in your personal relationships with people, and understanding where you are once again in that ecosystem, but really focusing on them, and not the booty shorts and not the six-pack abs, but really getting to know your clients. And that's something where we have these connected fitness communities of Tonal and Peloton and all those. They can, I mean, digital communities obviously proven to have a lot of value, but ultimately people want to get back to someone they know and trust. So am I answering your question directly there? I feel like I kind of went on a tangent.
Yeah, no, because I don't think that a brick and mortar wants to try to compete with one of those guys. I think that's a losing battle. It's a non-starter, but I think they can still learn from them. Like you said, because I know Soul Cycle pays their top instructors very well. Obviously, Peloton, I had no idea. It's like when I first found out how much DJs make, I was like, holy crap. But like the top DJs, they make ridiculous amounts of money. But but you can adopt that, because that's one thing that we're working on is, everybody does testimonials. Every brick and mortar does testimonials with their clients. Oh, I love
Mhm.
Catalyst, since I've come here, I've, gotten better looking. I've, married a rock star, and, I have $20 million in the bank, but we can do the same. We're doing the same thing with our trainers. We want to kind of highlight our trainers and make them the superstar. And then we have to treat them very well to keep them so they don't leave with all those people.
Yeah.
But I think that's the key, because like you said, people do want that human connection. They do. It's hard to quit people. And so if we can turn our trainers into rock stars, then that's people are going to respond to that. So that's
Yeah.
what we're doing in response to the online proliferation with um, Peloton and Tonal and all the other ones. So I think we can
Can I
definitely
add
learn
to
from
that
that.
too?
Sure. Mhm.
Yeah, that was really good. And as something, as you're speaking, you signaled something in my brain that
Oh,
I think one of the things to a huge advantage is, and I'm a huge proponent of helping people build it. It takes time, but it does bulletproof a business, and it's having a strong professional network. And I think that's something, especially in a local, if you're a local trainer or business, maybe with some online side of things, that's great. If you want to diversify, fully encourage
mhm,
it. But really, having a strong professional network in the area you're in is gold. And never, it's not only is it a way to produce great clients and great relationships and great business, but it's also a safety net. If something goes wrong, you have a strong professional network that you can rely on. And if people are wondering, well, what does that exactly mean and how do you do that, I would go to Bob Berg's great book called The Go Giver, which I've gifted hundreds of times. Um, and just read it. It's a short parable. It'll take you 30 minutes, and it talks about a different way of being a person of value, and going out there and giving value out in the world with no expectations. Although, here's a secret: you do get things back, and
mhm,
that's something I think that, as whether you're a personal trainer or a gym owner or a multiple location gym owner, if you have strong
mhm.
professional networks, I think you can, and it takes intention. You have to be consistent, just like everything. You have to be intentional with it. You have to be consistent with it. You have to give time to it every day. You got to feed it. But it is something that over time, you'll be so happy if you started today, 2 years from now, that you did it.
Yeah, I like that. And I'll check out that book. But I do like that. And when I have bounced that idea of making your trainer superstars off a couple of gym owners, they're like, well, what if they leave? I said, well, did you ever have like a great coach or a great teacher in your life, um, that really was, super influential in your career? And almost everybody does, right?
Sure.
I know I do. And so when you create those kind of relationships with people where you're, like you said, being a person of value in their life, they're not really interested in burning you.
No.
If anything else, they'll still pump your tires when they leave, which is what you want. You want to create those kind of relationships and that kind of network. And also, to your point, I started a local podcast for my club, Catalyst, and I recently rebranded it. And what I did is I picked a couple of health and professional fitness professionals from the local area. I have two chiros, a PT, and a Pilates instructor, and they're regular rotating guests on the podcast. And we just talk about ways to improve people's health and fitness, but I call it your professional health and fitness team. So all of those people are part of the team. Catalyst is part of the team. Their businesses are part of the team. So we have this whole team. So collectively, we're all helping each other, but also helping the consumer and helping potential clients or people who may never come clients. But basically, it's creating that network, but it's also making us an authority in the area.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100% on all of that. So I think
Yeah.
it's really, really important that you do that and get involved in the community, become a part of the community, because people really recognize that. And if you're doing like charity work or something, make sure it's something that hits home to you, not just some random charity that you pick out.
Yeah, that's great advice, Jim. I love it.
Yeah.
Same page.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this has been great, man. I would love to get you back on the show because you have such a wealth of knowledge. Matter of fact, I came up with an idea that I'll run past you later
Nice.
while you were talking. But I always end the show with three questions. This is my favorite part of the show because
Yeah.
we get to peek behind the curtain that is Eric Malzone. So my first question is, what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a devastating loss that you weren't going to be able to recover from, but you were able to take life lessons from it that propelled you to greater success down the road.
Ooh, man, I failed a lot, so I just got to pick the one of the best ones.
Yeah.
My
Or maybe
relationship with
even just the
failure is
most
pretty healthy.
recent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think there was one. I was in a community of gym owners. I was working directly with the founder of the community, and when I sold my gyms, my expectation was that I was going to be doing the digital marketing. I was going to produce things, and I was going to be kind of the go-to person for that. And when I got kind of out of the blue, just cut out. Wasn't even, still not really sure to this day why. I was devastated. I mean, my wife and I were here, we were traveling, right? We went nomadic after we sold the gym. And I was like, don't worry, honey, I got this. I got a plan. And then when I just found out I had been essentially ostracized, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, holy cow, I got to go to my wife and tell her that the plan is null. And now I got to come up with something completely different. And it turned out really well, 4 years later. But that was something where, I didn't read the signs. I didn't ask the right questions. I trusted in things that maybe I shouldn't have placed in my trust. And I learned a lot from that. And it did propel me to do bigger and better things independent of anyone else.
Yeah. So what are some of the lessons that you learned that you were able to use to kind of rebuild yourself?
Yeah. Well, number one, I needed a strong professional network. And that
Okay.
was one of the reasons I started the Future of Fitness podcast was like, well, I need to meet more people, right?
Hmm.
Especially because I was traveling. We were moving every 3 months to go different areas. A great fun time in life. And
Hmm.
we always look at the times of struggle and kind of envy them at times, right?
Right.
So I think I learned from that hey, I need to have my own network because I was going to lean on someone else's, right?
Hmm.
And I was going to engage with theirs. And then I found out, well, I can't control that. I can get cut out at any point. So building my own professional network now, which I have done over, a period of 4 years with intention, it serves me extremely well and it's mine. No one can take it away. It just took more time.
Yeah. I like that. All right. And then my next question is since you've been in the fitness industry, which has been a while, what has been the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with that you did not see coming? COVID is exempt because nobody saw that coming.
Right, right. The biggest surprise, um, so I was in CrossFit early on. I started CrossFit. I think I did my first workout in '07 and got my L1, my level one in '08 and started my gym in the beginning of '09. Technically in '08, but open doors in '09. And I, I thought it was going to grow. Dude, I can sit here. I had no idea that it was going to blow up like that to 15,000 global locations. And then, how fast we grew and my phone just
Mhm.
started ringing all the time. And we went through hard years in the beginning until it caught traction. So I think that was shocking. And it was a very welcome surprise that
Yeah.
we were able to grow that to, one, then two locations. So that was
Yeah.
great.
Awesome. Awesome. That's the best answer I've heard for that question because all the other ones are like, negative, but that's a positive. That's
Yeah,
good.
that was a very positive
Yeah.
one for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then my last question is where do you go for your personal and professional development?
Mm. Um, I go to my clients, to be honest with you. I was telling you, I work with no more than 10 consulting, mentoring, whatever you want to call it, clients at once. Um, I think anybody who's done business coaching or mentoring or consulting, you realize that you learn more from your clients than they probably learn from you. You don't tell them that, right? But it's true. I learned more like today, right before this call, I was so energized because I had some realizations through a conversation with a client about reflections on my own career and what I was doing. And she almost, by me helping her get back on track, and seeing, where she's going and understanding her version of success, it helped me revisit mine. And I think that was one of the biggest ones, is just my own clients tend to teach me quite a bit.
Yeah. It's always a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I tell owners a lot, is that the person you should listen to most when it comes to your clients is your trainers,
Hmm.
because they're on the front lines,
Yeah.
So yeah, you can learn something from everybody. Well, Eric, this has been great. Where can people get in contact with you, reach out to you, find out more, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I think I always like to direct people to, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn, you just look up Eric Malzone, you'll find me there. Also, if you want to go to futureoffitness.co, you can check out my podcast, my primary show. And then, if you Google me, you'll find a bunch of stuff, Level 5 Mentors. The Black Diamond podcast is on that website as well. So train with Morpheus. I don't know, all the places, but start with LinkedIn. That's probably the best place.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. And all those links will be in the show notes. Just go to
Cool.
trainerjim.net and click on this episode of the podcast, and the links to contact Eric and find out more about Morpheus will be right there. So Eric, this has been great, man. Like I said, I definitely want to have you back on, or at least touch base with you every once in a while, just to kind of shoot the
Absolutely.
shit and see what's going on in the industry.
That'll
So
make me really happy. Yeah. Thank you so
yeah,
much, Jim. A lot of respect and admiration for what you do here. So appreciate it.
and vice versa, man, vice versa. All right. Well, that's all. Well, have a good rest of your day up there in Big Sky Country, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
All right. Thanks.